Welcome, everyone, to the Grace Hour Show, our Christian program that takes a dive into our daily challenges, helps us to learn our faith in a practical way. My name is Pastor Matt Garrett, and I am joined here today by a special couple. We have an actually a special show for you today. We're pre-recording, so feel free to leave your comments throughout the show, but we will not be responding to them live. Please do not call in. We will not answer. But today I am joined in the studio by Zane and Gillian Turk. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How we doing?
Great.
Doing
We're doing
good.
awesome.
Good. Hey, thanks so much for being here. The theme for the week is seasons of relationships. And today, the reason why we have you two in the studio is because we're talking about newly married couples. So maybe just to get us started, maybe you guys could give us a little bit of your story, how you met, how long you've been married, all the good stuff, all the little,
Well, I can start it off and just so I grew up in this church in Baltimore. So part of my life was just yearly conventions, coming every year to convention. But part of Jill's life was maybe 3 or 4 conventions you were able to come to over the years. But we never really met each other until I lived in India for 4 months. So I lived there for 4 months, and then I was living in Bombay, but I got a chance to take a trip to Bangalore, where Jill is from, and the church that she went to and that her family planted. And I met her there for, I think I was there for 3 days. That was the first time we met in 2018. So
Cool.
We had maybe one conversation the whole time I was there. But then the next year, 1 year later in 2019, she came to Bible college in the fall semester of 2019. And that's when we really became friends. So, yeah. And then we just had developed a friendship over the next couple of years. And to make a long story short, we got married.
Sure.
In 2022. So we've been married for a year and a half.
Wow.
So
this is the definition of newly married.
Yes.
A year and a half in.
Yes.
Now, you just mentioned that you were in India for Bible college?
Yeah.
And that was a practicum?
Yep.
Right?
Little plug
for MBCNS
Shameless
from
plug.
the director.
Shameless plug.
Jillian, the office administrator, events coordinator of MBCNS. Just throwing it out there. Look into it. You might meet your wife on the mission field.
Ooh.
No promises. But that's very interesting. So you're in Bible college, you're going away, you're on the mission field, you're doing evangelism, helping with church planning, you are leading Bible studies maybe. I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff you can be doing, right? But in the meantime, this person pops up in your life, which is an amazing story. But to lead into maybe my first question for you guys, how did you guys decide? So you met basically in Bible college as friends first, and then you grew into this relationship of marriage. How did you guys decide Christ should be the foundation of your marriage? And this is open conversation, so either one of you can jump in at any time.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just say this. Before we decided to be in a relationship, we've made that decision. So, it was even before we decided we were friends, before we decided we wanted to date each other, that decision was made. And if that decision wasn't made in our lives before we met each other, then we wouldn't be together.
Wow.
So I think that's a good prerequisite, is just that's how we both lived our single lives.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's funny, when we did start dating, it was, I don't want to say it was it was a breeze. It was easy in one way, because as friends, we had already talked about a lot of important things that maybe a couple that's dating or interested in each other would talk about, because as friends, they were things that we already discussed as friends, in terms of how we want to live our lives. Do we want to be missionaries? And it was funny, when we were dating, when the conversations would come up around us, or I think we went to a marriage seminar like a couple
All
weeks
sat in the back
Yes,
hallway. I
we did.
remember.
Yeah, we did.
2 weeks into dating,
Just
we
listening to
snuck
like
in, we were
Liz
like,
and
"Let's
Roger
go."
Robbins like talking about the secrets to a good marriage. But yeah, it was interesting, and I think I said it to him. I was like, I think we've talked about a lot of these things, like not knowing that we would be together, just in terms of what does that look like for your life, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean that leads us into another great question, I think. And you could think about this in where you're at now, a year and a half into marriage, or like you guys said, maybe prior to marriage. What are some of these conversations that couples need to have before they or okay, they're in their first year of marriage, they find themselves disagreeing on different things. What are some of these conversations that end up coming up that need to take place to draw you guys closer first to Christ and then to each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's two layers to that question, because there's some, like, how our relationship progressed was that we were friends for a long time before we started dating. We weren't really talking about dating or talking about a relationship. I think that's the first layer, is to get to know somebody before you have these conversations, because we all know that when you're dating somebody, you can pretend to be somebody you're not, or you can have the good Christian answers, but really that's not where your heart is. So I think the first layer to answering that question is seeing each other's lives before we started dating and before we started having these conversations. The answers to these kind of questions that come up they're already really answered just by looking at each other's lives, you know?
So like a period of observation.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe what are some of those topics or questions? I mean, there's the big one. The big one is, do you want to go on the mission fields? You know?
Well, maybe not to everybody.
Yeah.
But like for us,
But for
that
your
was
relationship.
was an important question that I don't think we really even needed to bring up so much, because it already came up in the conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if it is in somebody's heart, do I want to be a missionary, and maybe it's not in someone else's heart? Great conversation to be having.
Definitely. Yeah.
Or if it's like, I want to serve in the ministry, that's like what I want to do with my life, and someone else says isn't. Great conversation to have. I mean, some other things we were talking about when we were dating was like, do you already have a place in your mind? Like after Bible college, like what's next?
Yeah.
Because I obviously, I'm not from here, and he was, and in my heart, I was like, I'm graduating and I'm gonna go somewhere.
Sure. Like straight to the mission field,
right?
kind of. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like your whole life was transplanted to Baltimore for Bible college. And then after that, what takes place next? I think my wife and I found ourselves in the same kind of circumstance. She transplanted herself here for a job, and then she found the Bible college, which is amazing. And I came here for the Bible college, and I thought as soon as I was done, I was gone. But 2 years into Bible college, we met, and it was just like, oh, reasons to stick around. No, I mean, there's all sorts of things, but I'm just saying, yeah. Can you guys think of any other potential conversations that could come up?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one is just having a conviction about church attendance.
Okay.
Like we go to church 3 times a week, and that's like our conviction.
Yeah.
It's not imposed on anybody, and I'm not going to impose that on her.
Yeah.
She can't impose that on me. But that's like a non-negotiable in my heart, and that was in hers too.
Yeah.
Is that we go to church and we're faithful to church.
Nice.
And if one of us didn't have that conviction, maybe it would be a different kind of conversation.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's one thing, and there's like the non-negotiables that really we settled in our heart.
Yeah, like when you're dating, having conversations about maybe somebody like has grown up in the ministry, so there's so much maybe that we don't even get to talk about, but it's like a blessing because there's things that are settled in their heart already.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's dating and they are dating somebody that maybe it's from a different ministry, or I don't know, they don't really know them so well. There's so many conversations and subjects maybe that you would need to think about, what do they believe? What do I believe?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, in a way, it can be a really good thing, because like really asking the question, like, God, what do I believe? What does the Bible actually say? Because that's kind of what I want to base my belief on.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much a feeling, but what does God have to say in his word?
Sure.
You know, so even when we were dating, those were things that we thought about, is what does the Bible really have to say on love? What does the Bible really have to say on truth?
Yeah.
What does the Bible have to say on, you know, trials, and how do we navigate that? Those were really good conversations, because I think when we were dating, there's only so much you can talk about that you see so differently in a marriage.
Sure.
So those conversations about, like, what does God have to say, I think they've really helped us in our marriage, because now we look back and we were like, that was really good.
Oh, nice. No, that's great. I'm thinking of like this idea of commitment. So when you're dating someone, you have like a level of commitment when you're dating someone. You want it to be exclusive. You're like testing the waters to see if this relationship is right for me, right for the other person as well. But then when you take that next step to propose, and then you enter into a marriage, that's like a whole other level of commitment. Yeah. And I feel like the devil is very much at work whenever he finds people who are ready to take that step and make that sort of commitment. I think it was Peter. Peter went to Christ and was like, Jesus, I am committed to you. If you go to that cross and die, I am dying with you. Like, I am committed to you. And what does Jesus say to him? Like, get behind me, Satan. Like, Satan was at work in Peter's heart, overcommitting in a sense to what he could do for Christ. But in a marriage, he's really just trying to break up any semblance of commitment. So with that in mind, have you guys, like in your first year and a half, have you guys gotten specific verses that have come to you, like either individually or as a couple, that have helped like kind of bolster your relationship and not only with each other, but also walking with God? Anything come up like that?
Yeah, I think that was also a part of also a part of our dating life.
Yeah,
was like really having unity on, and maybe I'll just like kind of say another answer to the last question.
Sure.
And then go into this one.
Yeah.
But I think we really agreed on like big things in the Bible, like the finished work. We agree on the finished work. We agreed on eternal security. We agreed on, like I was saying, like being faithful to a local assembly. We agreed on like all those major things, like the grace of God, that he's a gracious God and merciful. And I think agreeing on those things really sealed the deal in our hearts. Like, that's one level of agreeing. And then there's also like the practical, like compatibility. Yeah. And we really found that like we had both of those things. Awesome. So, but maybe one verse that we had together was really when we started dating. It was so funny that the day that I asked Jill to be my girlfriend we were both reading like that week and like meditating on Ephesians 5, and not the part about marriage, but a little before that, it says like making the best use of the time, or redeeming the time, walking circumspectly, and being filled with the Spirit. And it's so funny, like when I asked her out, it was a Tuesday night, I remember.
It was before Philippe's
Christian
ethics class.
We talked about it later, like after the class. We were like, this is the verses I was reading today, you know? And it was the same, we were both thinking about the same verse, we didn't even know. Wow. And that was like a good confirmation in our heart. Yeah. But it was also like based on truth. It was based on like, this is how we want to live our life as well. We want to redeem the time. Sure. We want to be filled with the Spirit. We want to walk circumspectly in this life. So it was cool that like it wasn't just like a sign, but it was like truth in the way we wanted to live our life that aligned. So that's awesome. That's one verse that we kind of had in our heart. Yeah. Yeah. So how about now? Okay, that's confirmation. You're dating. It's like, okay, I'm gonna ask her. This is gonna happen. Like, God is in this, but
now that you're married, like, have there been any verses, any messages, anything that's like, oh, we needed that, or that was like for us kind of thing, where God is speaking to you personally in regards to like your marriage relationship?
Yeah, Pastor Schaller actually I don't know if it was last year or the year before that, but one of his messages from Ezekiel 47 really touched my heart. I think it was 2 years ago, so it was when we were dating. But that chapter has really helped me, like in our marriage, think about like the river that's flowing.
Yeah.
And the river that I think it's like from below the threshold of the temple, like that's the context that it's flowing. And whatever the river touches, like there's life that either comes out of it, or if there's like it says there are like marshy lands, or and then it's like even if the river touches that, like that can be made alive. So how does that relate to our marriage? It's just, I mean, there are times, you know, when we're talking or living life together, and it's like, this doesn't really make any sense, or we can't really figure this out. And for me, what has kept me is that thought of like our life is like with God in the river, and like and then if you read more, it's like, well, Christ is the river, that he brings life. And maybe the marshy areas in our life that sometimes we're like, I can't figure this out, or there's something that needs to like be given to God, just needs like that river to flow through it to make it alive. So I think that's something that we talk about every now and then, is like our marriage is in the river, and then we're in the church, and the church is in the river, and it's like flowing, it's not stagnant.
Yeah.
So that's like one chapter and a couple verses.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. So you guys are talking about, okay, Bible verses, we're talking about messages, we're talking about convictions on church attendance. So this brings me to another good question. I think you guys have kind of already answered it, but maybe just to lay it out for our viewers, how does a newly married couple find this balance between, okay, church life, ministry life, depending on the couple, and then home life? Like, how do you guys, are they separate? Are they all together? What does that look like for you guys right now? What's that like? Speak to us.
Yeah, it's a good question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, grace is a good answer.
Oh,
like,
man, 100%.
Making room for it. And something Pastor Justin Schaller, he said it one time just in a conversation, was like, whenever he thinks about ministry and family, he's always thinking long term. And I think that's really wise, because really this is our life, and Christ is our life, and telling people about him and ministering Christ is our life. So it's not like something we want to do for like 2 years with everything we got, and then we're done because we're burnt out and we can't handle it.
Yeah.
So really we think long term, and this year after we've been married, it's been great, because we've really had a lot of counseling just to relax and enjoy it, and just to be hidden in the church and just take your time and have room, you know. And we've really enjoyed that, and kind of laid the foundation for our marriage and what we believe and how we are together. And we're thinking long term. So as far as ministry, work, home life, church life, it's really thinking long term and just making decisions together, that it's not just me going out and ministering, or it's not just Jill going out and ministering, but really whatever we do it together. And if we're not together on it, then what are we really ministering if we don't have a unity in our marriage? So really the unity in our marriage is the source of how much we can minister, or where we minister. And it really comes from that, like doing it together and deciding this is what works for us. And let's have a lot of grace for each other and for the start of it.
Yeah, and also maybe just something I was thinking about when you were talking is having good communication. Like, I know we hear it a lot, but it's vital. Like,
Sure.
if I'm not able to do something, or if there's something in my heart that I want to do, or if I feel like the balance is off, like, Zane's not going to know about it unless I tell him.
Mm-hmm.
So just like having communication with each other, and what to say, when to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's not like I tell him everything that is going on in my brain, and like with time we learn like what can the other person handle, what can't they handle. But I just think communication is really important when it comes to finding that balance between like church and work and like our home life.
Very good. A verse that came to mind was Amos 3:3. And you guys have pretty much said it without saying it. Can two walk together except they be agreed? And then another one, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 2, Paul is speaking to his church and saying to them, you are our epistle written in our hearts, known and read of all men. So I really appreciate what you guys said about like just giving space, giving room, taking your time. Your life together is a ministry. Whether you think like other people are watching or not, the body is observant of the body. It takes notice of things that are going on. We're actually called to that in 1 Corinthians 12 to rejoice when others rejoice, or is it Romans 12? Rejoice when others rejoice, and to be sorrowful when others are sorrowful. We're called to like observe each other. So your lives as a young married couple is a ministry to the people in the church. And I love the idea of taking it slow, thinking long term. This also speaks of like a vision for your life and for the direction, like for the flow of the water, for the life that's coming out of the temple and growing. I think it says the water in Ezekiel 47, it like starts at the feet and then it rises to the ankles and then the knees and then the waist. And it's like eventually you're completely overflowed by the water, right? So it's like Christ's life is like building up in your lives right now, like little by little. And don't ever be discouraged, because that's a testimony to the body of Christ. And I'm so thankful for you guys being here and your answers so far. This has been great. I want to shift a little bit. To kind of the more practical side of everyday life as a married couple. So let's go back to that question about conversations that need to take place. And let me give you a little bit of like an idea of what I'm thinking here. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. There are socks all over the place. There is random things spread throughout the house, on the floor, on the counters, in the shelves where they don't even belong. How do you guys deal with that? The nitty gritty. Okay, there's laundry to do. Our house is a mess. There's things going. We have this to go to, but we have this happening here. How does that work in a new marriage, in a 1.5 year relationship of marriage?
The tables are turned. We cleanse the leaven out. We cleanse the socks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is just like
our relationship. We're both kind of disciplined people, and I mean, we have our little tasks and roles.
Yeah.
Like practically speaking, just like what we're both responsible for.
Okay.
And it hasn't really been like talked about, I guess. But we kind of just like found ourselves like, I mean, I do the laundry or I clean the dishes when I'm done. Like, that's just our way of life. I don't know.
Yeah, or like I cook and like he does the dishes.
Uh-huh.
But there are days where I know he's really, really tired and I'll do the dishes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think we kind of got into like a system that we're like, I know I can do this.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't expect you to do this if you can't do it. Like, it's not 50-50, like you bring this and I bring this.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That's
like,
really good.
Yeah, it's like if you're bringing I don't know, like if you're bringing 20%, it's like I understand it's 20%. And I'm like, if I have the ability to do it, then I will do it. You know? I just think maybe, coming back to the point of like there's so much grace
Yeah.
in the relationship. But we're also like, we don't have kids, so what will that be like? I don't know. But just to think that like the conversation of like there is so much room in our relationship.
Nice.
Like during convention, it's like it's crazy. Like you know, the dishes are in the sink, and you know, like the laundry needs to be done. But maybe that's not something that's like driving me crazy. Where I'm like, my spiritual life is doing so bad because everything is so messy. But yeah, I just think, like, I just have been able to just see that, like, God has given us grace because we're, like, willing to respond to it.
Yeah.
I think a big thing is, like Jill said, like we're not expecting anything.
Okay.
And I think, like,
yeah.
having an expectation, like, that would be familiar, and it would kind of ruin. Like,
Okay.
it would ruin the sanctity of just, like, how we treat each other.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm never coming home and saying I expect like
Sure.
food to be ready or I expect the house to be clean, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm not expecting
Going back to the 1950s here. Yeah.
I know, right? like we're not expecting anything of each other, but really just serving each other. And I think that's a big part of also something that's been like in our hearts, like just growing up and hearing about Christ and hearing about who he is.
Wow.
Is that he is a servant, and we want to be servants.
Yeah.
And we want to serve each other.
Yeah.
And exalting each other above the other person. And that's something that we've made a decision in our own life. So that's kind of why it hasn't been such a struggle to go into, because we just have that in our heart. Not to say everything's perfect, of course, but that's been like something that we've wanted to do, is to be servants, not just to each other, but to everyone. So
no, that's great. So like that's Philippians 2:3, verses 3-5, like having the mind of Christ, wanting to serve each other. Ephesians also chapter 5, verses 21, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. I find it interesting that it's kind of unspoken for you guys. I think for lots of couples, it needs to be a conversation. There needs to be like, hey, we just have to decide. We just have to put it down on paper and say, all right, hey, this is what I'm going to do and this is what you're going to do. Are we agreed? You know?
Right.
And I think there's nothing wrong with either way. I'm just saying, I find it like, I love for you. Oh, yeah, I got this. You know, like no big, if I can do it, I'll do it. I think that's like a really powerful statement.
Right.
But it's good. Like no relationship is the same. I think
100%.
that's awesome that like kind of we knew that like going into our relationship, because we have role models and we have people or marriages that we want to be similar to.
Sure.
But at the same time, like it could also be a blunder for a couple to say our relationship should look like this, when in reality, your relationship isn't going to look like anything that's ever happened. You know, it's going to be unique.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. You guys ready? We're going to get into like the harder question,
Yes, let's do it.
the real question.
Bring it on.
When struggles arise, when there's friction, disagreement, or like you said earlier, like lack of communication, whenever people aren't speaking about what's on their heart or mind, and it causes like a tension, or the way we understand it sometimes with the Bible is that there's air between us. What are some things that have caused that so far in your relationship, and what are some ways you've combated it or have gotten past it?
Who's gonna answer?
I guess I can say something. I was just thinking about how maybe there are times when maybe there is air, or maybe we have a conversation and we don't necessarily meet each other in the conversation. A lot of the times it's maybe something in my heart that maybe I think I'm right, or maybe I think like it could be done this way, or I have an expectation, because we all do, like, and it's in one way it comes so naturally to us as people to have like a false standard in my mind. And then a lot of the times it's like, it's funny, it happens in our own home, like we don't even have to go look for it. It happens in our own home where it's like that doesn't get met, and it's not a bad thing. But I think the way that I kind of like overcome that is really just saying that I have to go to God and humble myself. Because it doesn't really happen any other way. Because in the end, what good comes from him saying to me, like, okay, Jill, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, maybe some people want to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
but in my heart, I'm like, that doesn't make me feel any better.
Mm-hmm.
Because what were we going back and forth about? Like, being right,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm right, and then I scored
Where do you
a point.
go from there?
Great.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So really, like, humbling myself before God and saying, is it about me? Is it about the truth? And is it about what's best for our relationship? Because knowing we're a team and realizing we're not on opposite sides, like trying to score a goal in the other person's on the other person's side, but it's just like I am trying to meet him in a situation, and when maybe I can't, is when there can be error, because then there's like all these like upsetting thoughts that come in my mind.
Yep.
And a lot of the times he doesn't even know about it because it's all going on in my head. But again, coming back to like communication, just talking it through and learning maybe when is the best time to talk it through. Sometimes it's like late at night and we're both tired and we need to just recognize like we love each other. There's nothing wrong really.
Yeah.
And if it's impossible, it's only because it feels impossible. It's not really impossible. And then a lot of the times when we're just like, okay, I love you, and we just need to go to bed and wake up tomorrow, and then it's like the air is gone,
Yeah.
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 So I just think every couple needs to maybe kind of navigate those waters of like, what are some good boundaries too in a conversation where it's like we both know that there isn't really a problem. If we really love each other and we're able to talk about it in the right setting at the right time, like, then we're going to be able to get through like a struggle,
Yeah.
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 But that has really helped us, is just like knowing when not to.
Yeah.
And then also knowing that like we love each other, that's the foundation. And then like whatever comes, like we'll handle it together.
Yeah, I think something that, sorry.
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think something that has really helped us with that, like figuring things out or this like overcoming different struggles, has been in the beginning when we laid our foundation of there's certain things that we are not going to do. And these things that we're not going to do, like, no matter how we feel in the moment. Because when you cross a line, even in the early years of your marriage, it leaves it open. Like, I'm not going to storm out of the house, or I'm not going to sleep in another room, or I'm not going to call you a name, or I'm not going to raise my voice. Like, these are things that we're not going to open the door for. And that's really helped us, I think, because like, you can't take back words. They come out of your mouth and they stay there.
That's true.
And they go into the heart,
Yes.
So, I mean, only by God's grace and just like our desire for these things have we been able to say, I'm not going to do these things. And I think we really haven't even discussed like all of what those things are, but it's just kind of in our hearts that we are not going to treat each other in a certain way because of the way we feel.
Yeah.
And after that argument or after that little discussion, we're not going to hold it to each other's charge. Like, we're not going to hold it against each other, and we're going to forgive.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's something we've learned in our church, in our Bible college.
Yeah.
We're going to forgive. And doing it practically
also
is
like
different.
keeping short accounts.
Yes. Yeah.
And like if we've talked about something and it's like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, will you forgive me? It's like, if once I say yes, it's like it's in the past. And I'm not going to be like 5 days later we're having a conversation and it's like an arrow that comes out and it's like,
back.
remember when you did that?
Yeah.
So I could easily think that way.
Yeah.
But I really am just like, and it's something I'm still learning. It's like going to God and being like, if you don't even remember this, I have no business like bringing it back up again.
Wow. Yep.
So that's been really good
Yeah.
just to think about.
Let me summarize just a little bit what you guys just said, because you guys just said a whole lot of really amazing things. First thing I got from both of you is like, remember the big picture is that you love each other. Like, that's first and foremost. Remember the big picture is that you love each other. I think throughout the show you have both said like grace is important, and wherever you're at in your marriage relationship or dating relationship or whatever season of relationship you're in, as you're listening this week, give yourself a lot of grace. And then, Jillian, you hit on the idea of humility and like really just going to God with those things. And Zane, I love what you said about having this game plan before it takes place. Hey, we're never going to cross this line. Hey, we're never going to say that thing. Hey, no matter how we're feeling, because in the moment when your emotions are high, your voice, like my voice is raising right now a little bit because I'm excited about what we're talking about, but your voice can just like take off, or that word can come out of your mouth because it was in your heart about your spouse, and you don't ever want it to come out. Like, so you have to almost set that limit beforehand. So I really love everything that you guys just said, because that's going to minister to people that minister to me. It's going to be like important for people to hear this and understand that we're all imperfect and we're all learning as we go. I'm in my almost fifth year of marriage with my wife, and we are learning every single day, like how to overcome these things. So take courage, listeners. Take courage. Maybe one last question to wrap things up, and this is more just for our viewers out there, specifically, like to address them. What piece of advice, what wisdom would you like to impart to anyone who's contemplating the idea of marriage, or is in a serious relationship right now, thinking like, should I take that next step with this person? And you guys have said a lot of great things already, but what's one thing you could say, like wrap it up in a bow and say, here you go, here's what I have to give to you. Any thoughts?
I was just thinking about, and we talked about this when we were talking about the show, is the thought that like marriage is a gift, and even being in a relationship with somebody where you're contemplating marriage is a gift, and recognizing that it's valuable. It's like something that once you do enter into it, it changes your life, quite literally. But I was just thinking about 1 John 4, where it says, this is love, like not that we love God, but that he loved us and gave his life for us, summarizing it. But just the thought that when I am contemplating marriage, or I am married to somebody, that is really an invitation where I'm calling somebody else into a relationship with me, knowing that God loves me first, and then I can really love somebody else.
Nice.
So we were just talking about how maybe it's really important for somebody to understand or know the love of God, and to know that they are loved by God when they decide to like step into another relationship with another person, and then they decide to get married, because the love of God is really like the bedrock of a marriage. Is like, okay, what if I don't feel like my spouse loves me? There are days maybe where it's like, I don't feel the love, but it's like knowing that like, okay, my spouse loves me with the love of God, and that transcends maybe like the human emotions that like, can project love.
Sure.
And I think that has really like also encouraged us a lot in our marriage, is thinking that like we know that like God loves us, not that we did anything to deserve it. And we don't deserve marriage either. It's not something God guarantees or promises. It's a gift. So anybody thinking about marriage, or people in marriages, know that it's like, it's a gift.
Awesome.
And God wants us to realize that.
Yeah. Being grateful. Amen. Yeah. Zane?
So when in heaven, when we die, we're not going to be married anymore. But what are we going to be? We're going to be friends, spiritual friends. And our life is going to go beyond. It's going to pass through eternity. And for eternity, we're going to be spiritual friends. And that's going to be amazing. We're not going to be married, but we're going to have all the memories of the prayers and the times we decided to go on outreach, and the times we forgave each other or gave grace. We're going to be spiritual friends. So just maybe a word of encouragement to someone who's dating or seriously thinking about marriage. is to not marry somebody that you have intense, crazy feelings for, but marry a spiritual friend.
Wow.
Because that's going to pass through eternity.
Wow.
And it's going to keep you for many years in this life. And something that we're really grateful for is that God gave us to each other as spiritual friends. And that's really been the amazing thing and an amazing secret. And a part of that spiritual friendship is amazing feelings of love and emotions of love. But that's not something we chased for. We didn't chase for the feeling or the emotion of being in love.
Yeah.
We looked for a spiritual friend, and God gave us more than we could ask for or think. So that's just a word of encouragement is just marry a spiritual friend, and you're never going to regret that.
Amen.
So.
Wow. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an awesome show. Thank you guys for listening along. I know, again, we were not live today, but feel free to leave your comments. We will come back and take a look at them. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a few other streaming platforms. Be sure to join us for our next show tomorrow, where we actually talk about a seasoned marriage, and you'll have a whole new set of speakers for that. So Zane, Jill, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is us signing off. Have a great day, everyone. See ya.